decided to do. Oh, okay.
Welcome.
Um. Uh. I decided to do like a Sufjan Stevens special. So I got two. Um. I think first I'm going to do Mystery of Love, um, which I've been thinking about doing for a while, but I just, there wasn't anything over the summer, and then I was moving last month, so I'm gonna do it now. Yeah, that's just about it. Oh, to see without my eyes, the first time that you kissed me, but by the time I cried, I built your walls around me. White noise, what an awful sound. Fumbling by rhythm, feel my feet above the ground. And a good deal. Oh, is me. The first time that you kissed me. Whoa, what was it you said? Blessed be the mystery of love. Lord, I no longer believe, drowned in living waters, cursed by love that I received from my brother's dog. Like Hephaestion who died, Alexander's love. Now my riverbed has dried. Shall I find no one? Oh, it's me. Running like now I'm prone to misery. The birthmark on your shoulder. How much sorrow can I take? Blackbird on my shoulder. And what difference does it make when this love is over? Shall I sleep within your bed with but happiness? Hold your hands upon my head till I breathe my last breath. Oh, it's me. The last time that you touched me, Oh, one who's never ceased. Blessed be the ministry of. There's that one.
That sounded great, what we could hear, but you were totally cutting out the whole time.
Yeah,
Shoot.
Was that true for everybody?
yeah, cutting in and
It
out.
must have been that I think I got like I think because I was logged out of my Zoom for so long, it like reset my automatically adjust microphone volume. I had that changed all last year, and because I haven't logged into my Zoom in a long time, it okay, well,
We could hear your
next
voice.
time.
We could hear your voice pretty good, but the guitar, not at all. Like almost not at all.
Okay,
Um,
well, next song it will be
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
but it sounded good. Your voice sounded
Yeah.
good.
Eh,
I love that song. We were trying to sing along with you. At first, I thought maybe I had my volume on and it was cutting out because I was singing along. I got very worried about that for a second. I was like, oh no, I'm hopefully not doing that to you. But yeah, it was a lovely
Okay.
version of that song.
I think I adjusted the settings properly. Should I save my second song for later or do it now?
Either way, I don't. It doesn't matter to me. We have time for everything. So, do you feel like you want to do it right now, or do you want to wait?
Um, let me just get both of them done. And this one I'm going to be looking at my chords though. So I'm just gonna pull those up real fast. Yeah. This one is 4th of July. Um, okay. And this one is a bit easier for me. And let's see, I couldn't see you guys last time because I had my chords up just in case. So I'm just gonna scooch it a little bit so that you guys can maybe like let me know if you can't hear me. All right, there we go. Okay. So yeah, 4th of July. The evil it spread like a fever that had his night when you died, my firefly.
You still can't hear the guitar.
Huh?
Still can't hear the guitar.
Are you kidding? Okay, okay, somebody else should go. I'll mess around with it a little more.
Okay, Sylvia, do you want to go?
Okay. This is a story about chocolate. I was at the top of Telegraph Hill with my little sister at the base of Coit Tower. I would be 9 or so, and she would be 6. We would crawl through a hole in the fence and sit on a rough rock at the edge of the cliff in the wind. And I would break in half the piece of chocolate I had brought with me, and we would sit and eat it looking out at the bay. My sister was small and thin and looked fragile, with wispy brown curls and bright green eyes. And she was wearing what all little girls wore then, a flower print short sleeved dress that reached just to the knees. It was important to break the candy exactly in half. I was good at it. We were hungry children, and it mattered that we each got exactly half. I would hold up the two pieces and measure them against each other while my sister gravely watched, and if one was larger, I'd bite off the excess and then give that half to my sister. Carefully shared and eaten in silence. Chocolate. Fragrant, so fragrant, dark and rich, and tasting like something important, something just out of sight, enormous as the bay below us. I have a tricky heart. I had my first cardiac arrest when I was 20, and I've had many since then. And I was a chocolate addict. Even knowing that chocolate or anything with caffeine made my heart act up, until I was almost 30 and a doctor told me, think of it this way, you can eat chocolate or you can live. That was pretty clear and, and pretty compelling. And I quit cold turkey that day. My sister still loves chocolate. She lives in Boise, Idaho, and I take a lot of pleasure in finding interesting chocolate and sending it to her. Single origin, fair trade chocolate from Madagascar or Venezuela, made bean to bar in a warehouse in Southeast Portland, kind of thing. She reports back on how she liked each one. Meh, or pleasant but not earth-shaking, or knocked my socks off, or socks knocked all the way into the next galaxy. But for me, chocolate is just a memory. A rock on top of Telegraph Hill, 1,000 shards of sunlight glimmering on the dark blue bay like bits of a shattered mirror. The wind sloughing past us, and ship horns droning out on the bay. The smell of the chocolate, rich, dark, sweet, and then the taste, with that addictive edge. The rock rough under our bottoms through our too thin dress and underpants, and the wind cold on our exposed arms and legs. And chocolate, which tasted like love.
Well, now you make me want to eat some chocolate. That was lovely. I love that. Did you have a title for it? Did you title it chocolate? No. Is that too obvious to title it?
I just wrote it this morning and I didn't think about a title.
What inspired you to write it this morning?
I'm taking a storytelling workshop that was offered by a friend of mine teaches storytelling workshops, and she needed somebody to fill in one of her workshops. And so she said, you want to just come? So that's
Cool.
I could see that view from Coit Tower.
yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing it. Well, Chris, did you want to share this evening?
I have something, yeah. But it looks like, is Sophia ready to do her song? I'd love to hear her other song too. I'm not in a huge hurry.
Are you ready, Sophia?
Turned on high fidelity music mode, so if it doesn't work, I'm gonna have to sue.
Okay, we'll go with it.
It used to work, right?
Why don't you just strum a little bit so see if we can hear it. Melvin,
Not
Like
nothing.
at all?
Really quiet.
just barely.
Do you have the like original sound button that you can click, or does that?
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
We might just have to listen to a toned down version. Bummer.
Um, like, is it, do you, like, I am not really getting a good gauge for like how worth me playing it is.
Your voice sounds clear and beautiful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's not like it's no, you should yeah, you should definitely.
If I play a lot louder, does it,
No,
Still seems like it's kind of filtering it out. Yeah.
definitely thinks it's background noise.
okay, well,
Yeah.
I guess I'll just play it and because I have done all the things that I can do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go for it.
Okay. Evil is spread like a fever ahead. It was not when you died, my firefly. And what could I have said to raise you from the dead? Or could I be the sky on the 4th of July? Will you do enough to talk, my little hawk? Why do you cry? Tell me, what did you learn from the Tillamook burn or the 4th of July? We're all gonna die. Sitting at the bed with your halo at your head, was it all a disguise like junior high? Where everything was fiction, future and prediction now. Where am I, my fading supply? Did you get enough love, my little? Why do you cry? And I'm sorry I left, but it was for the best, though it never felt right. My little Versailles. The hospital asked, was your body recast before? Say goodbye, my star in the sky. It's such a funny thought to wrap you up in cloth. Do you find it alright, my dragonfly? And shall we look at the moon, my little? Why do you cry? Make the most of your life while it is right, while it is light. Will you do enough talk, my little hawk? Why do you cry? Tell me, what did you learn from the Tillamook burn or the 4th of July? We're all gonna die. 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 There you go. Hope it wasn't. I mean, I don't know. That song has kind of a lot of gaps in it to be a cappella, but I don't know.
No, it worked. It worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry that the guitar is not coming through. I don't know. I was gonna like try to. I assume you know all the boxes to click and all that. So I didn't think you needed me to like walk you through it, but I don't know. It's a weird thing.
Your voice sounded great.
Yes, indeed. And gaps are still okay. Silence is part of the music, so, you know.
Silence is underrated.
Chris, are you ready?
Sure. But first, I need to know from Sylvia which chocolate knocked her socks off and which chocolate knocked them out of the galaxy. Can you put those in the chat bar so I can order some ASAP?
I wish I knew. Oh, I might even have written it down. I'll look and see if I've got a note. But yeah, if I find it, I'll tell you.
Okay. Or report back on another night if you can't find it tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wrote this the other day. I'm just kind of going with the title "Time Marches On" right now, but I'm not sure I love that title. But anyway. Oscar scowled across the table at me. Dark eyes, dark looks, thatched locks of youthful dark hair under that too small cap, that knit hat that would look ridiculously out of place on the same head in a year or two, scowled at me with his simmering dark eyes full of defiance, but not full of hate. Too young to truly hate because of never really loving, but never too young to defy. I met his stare, not sure what my face was expressing, not sure of my eyes, doing my best to exude a kind of dignity and amicability, a kind of tolerance that probably just came across as worn out defiance, or maybe came across as anger, or maybe just a weak old man that looked like a person Oscar could hone his hate upon. If only we could convince ourselves to hate worthless things. Sometimes time forgets to pass, forgets to move on. Sometimes time lays down and closes its eyes and plays dead, plays possum, until we stupidly prod it with a stick and it wakes up and steps back into line and marches on, dragging its prisoners, its plunder of the living, its cages of souls helplessly along in its wake. When I took Little Bear out to the front of the barn for the first time 8 summers ago, with the saddle I had pulled out of the tack room and a blanket and the harness with the bit, he danced circles around me, bobbing his head, throwing that thick mane, snorting fire and life, looking at me out of the side of his eye and trying to reckon the punishment for disobedience. What would be the price of a push, a shoulder in my back, a nip, a kick, a hard turn of the head? He decided it would be too much to afford, at least momentarily, slowing his feet to a shuffle. I tossed the blanket on his back, the brown felt pad with a zigzag of orange and yellow, and then the saddle, forgetting to set it on gently, instead lifting and dropping it on his back, spooking him more than he already was, and getting a shoulder in my chest in return, slamming me into the side of that goddamn rusty old trailer with the door almost falling off. That goddamn door swinging open and shut all night in the wind, creaking open like the gates of a forbidden place, slamming shut like the lid of a coffin, waking up all of creation with that racket, with its stubbornness, its refusal to stay still, nothing but rust and crumbling hinges, twisting on decaying, broken dreams. I looked at Oscar across the table and saw the wheels turning behind the eyes. A predator just like me, who evolved from the companions of wolves and bears, a restless spirit, a spirit that never wants to return to those times, but can't find a map to the future either, and so substitutes hatred for hunting and defiance for companionship, and who dances around like an animal of prey, wondering what the punishment will be for disobeying. I finally got the saddle on Little Bear and the harness and the reins in place, and then hopped into the saddle from the mounting block. Little Bear froze for a moment and then dropped to the ground, taking us both down, rolling over on his side and halfway onto me as I scrambled to get out of the saddle, almost crushing my left foot in the stirrup, bending and buckling all my attack in the process. Little Bear lay frozen, eyes rolling as I pulled myself out from underneath him. He lay still until I stood and got a hold of the reins, and he leapt to his feet, staring into my eyes, motionless only until I swung back into the saddle, determined to show him who the boss was. And then he lifted his hooves and raced on as I leaned forward, clinging helplessly to his mane. Now, looking at Oscar, all I could think to say was, don't waste your time. Are you worried I'll waste your time? He asked. You got better things to do? And anyway, he said, I can do what I want with my time. It's my life, not yours. I tried to keep the same look on my face, whatever it was, and answered, in case you don't know, this isn't your time. Your time will come soon enough, but this isn't it. Oscar laughed scornfully and pushed his chair back with a scrape and a shake of his head, leaving the door open as he stalked out of the room, still shaking his head and muttering, leaving the hall pass on the table, a suddenly useless document, leaving the door open, shuffling down the hall and no longer reckoning the price of anything, leaving the door open while I sat unaware of my expression, idly rubbing my neck and chest, feeling undignified. There are moments when time forgets to pass, forgets to move on. Time lays down and closes its eyes and plays dead until we stupidly kick at it and it leaps up and moves forward again, ignoring our demands, carrying us helplessly along.
Ah, that's very. I was. I was trying to understand, and this is, I guess, my, I don't know, my sometimes challenge of understanding stories when I'm hearing them, the connection between the two experiences. But maybe somebody else can explain it, because maybe we shouldn't make the author explain it. I had trouble. Did you Did you catch it?
So we had Oscar
Oscar's
and
a,
Little Bear.
Oscar's a student, yes.
Yeah,
Bones.
it it's
But
mostly fictional. There's a little bit of true things in there, so it's not, these aren't real related. These aren't actual events that happen. I mean, the horse did lay down on me one time and roll over, but that's about the extent of the truth in the story. The rest is just sort of a metaphor, I guess.
That's what I struggle with. Metaphors. Well, I liked listening to it.
Thank you.
I especially like the description of the trailer, the rusty, frustrating trailer.
Oh yeah, that part was true also.
I for some reason sensed it. It felt I don't know. It had that sort of visceral um, sense to it.
Yeah, that door finally fell off, actually. That door rusted off.
It sounded like it was going to.
Yeah.
I was wondering. I actually, a thought that crossed my mind was, I wonder why it's still on the property. Like, why was it still there? But obviously, I mean, you spoke with so much frustration about it. It sounds like it was just one of those, like, it was just a particularly, like, it was just indicative of the whole, maybe, of what was happening in at that moment in time, and I don't know. And we all have things like that, right? That just why is this still here? Why haven't I dealt with this? Whatever it is. Yeah. Launched. What is this? Oh, launched.
I found uh, the report back from my sister.
Socks left into. Oh, launched into. Oh my. Socks died of ennui. Oh man.
That one was not a hit, clearly.
I don't want to eat that.
What's that?
I don't want to eat that one.
No.
Well, my friends, anything else for sharing? this evening? I look at all y'all. No?
Again, well, I guess I have to ask one question is, does anyone get offended by kind of religion and like, speaking about, I just wouldn't want to offend anyone's religious sentiments.
No, but now I'm very intrigued.
Yeah. Well, it's not.
None of us is going to be offended.
And Chris, you know what I got from that story is that you have a real hard time being boss. You gotta step up, man, and show them using those horses, man.
I gotta step it up. Yeah.
You say that too, because I was thinking, like, it made me think of what people have told me in terms of like managing or handling Charlie. Like, you need to be boss. You need to tell him who's boss. And that's immediately what came into my mind, and when you talked about that, he's being a good boy right now. Anyway,
Well, I'll read a story that and in fact, Chris has helped me. Chris and I do a two-person writing gang. Where we meet every couple of weeks and we listen to each other because no one else will listen to us about the things that we write. And so, this is one that Chris has certainly helped me on, and I'll share it with you guys.
writing game.
Yeah. So it's called The Homily. I sat still while late spring was bursting forth all around me. An early morning dew blanketed thousands of blades of glittering grass, weighing heavily on the branches of a hydrangea, whose leaves tickled the soil below. Violet petals of the sage plant showed brilliantly in the wavering sunlight, while our resident honeybees were still entranced by the fragrant spell of the wilting daphne flowers. The rufous hummingbirds were chasing one another like fearless stunt pilots, buzzing high overhead before shooting downward into a shuttle-like display. They danced with boundless energy from one radiant blossom to the next, aware but unfazed by my presence or anything else outside the garden. Their restlessness seemed to carry with it a promise of renewal. This glorious hour of the morning had set my mind in tune with the painted moods of Edvard Grieg that were drifting lazily from the open windows facing our yard. The ethereal soundtrack was carried to me on a slight breeze and deepened my appreciation for the richness of life, even in its most unfathomable moments. The morning air was chilly enough to welcome the direct sunlight on my body, and there was still a couple of hours before the afternoon heat forced me to take refuge inside the dark, cool confines of our home. In this celebration of color and fragrance, there was perfect harmony, but I knew it was fleeting. I wanted just a moment to bask in this colorful palette of rebirth with Callie. Over the sound of leaves fluttering in the slight breeze, I heard the car door shut and her familiar footsteps climbing to the front door. Callie was home a bit later than usual. As she made her way to the back of the house, her footsteps grew louder until she poked her head out the window. "I'm home. Come sit outside." I wanted to make sure we didn't miss our opportunity. Callie swung the back door open, as she did each Sunday, and settled into the lawn chair beside me. I had prepared the usual, scrambled eggs and dark roasted coffee. She carefully lifted the hot coffee and sipped it with trepidation until feeling its safely warm temperature on her lips. Her pleasure, though reserved, was unmistakable. She closed her eyes and let out a sigh before taking a proper gulp. She trained her eyes on the stillness of a hummingbird as it hovered by the fuchsia. I watched, holding my breath until the iridescent jewel flew off like a missile. Callie turned back to me and breathed in the soft fragrance coming from the lilac blossoms. Her scrambled eggs sat alone, untouched. That moment of grace passed. "I'm not feeling too hungry," she spoke dejectedly, It was a departure from our typical Sunday morning, which lifted her spirits and her appetite. She finally settled on the question that hung heavily like the morning dew. Did you hear the news? Her stilted voice betrayed her billowing emotions. I expected the question, but was still not quite prepared for it. Yes, that's why I'm listening to all classical. Get my mind off it. I didn't know what else to say. I never knew this piece was by Edvard Grieg. It's called Morning Mood. So lovely, peaceful. I paused as the music receded to the background and reality tightened its grip. I couldn't hold on to it any longer. So did the priest mention Orlando in his homily? No, she answered flatly, betraying her disgust. Is that because he's not confident enough to speak about something unrehearsed? It was a gay nightclub, she stated the obvious, unable to hide her disdain for the priest. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. I backtracked, realizing how silly the question was, knowing the church as intimately as I did. You think he's earned it? They've earned it? No, they haven't, but maybe he's got a different point of view. I couldn't even really convince myself on this point. Callie didn't give my comment the dignity of a response. Together we settled uneasily into silence, letting its gravity sink in. The actions of a 30-year-old man had gripped us tightly, quickly burying us in an avalanche of grief. The choice to avoid this discussion, to ignore the heinous act, was as good as condoning it. Would Jesus ignore these victims because of their sexual orientation? Sitting here in the yard, it was hard to believe that bigotry and violence were real. The softness of the breeze, bird songs, flitting insects, they contradicted the darkness that swallowed up that nightclub and our nation. I watched a small beetle land on the side of Callie's mug, making the arduous climb to the rim only to fly off to its next destination. I marveled at his persistence, but his journey seemed futile. 50 lives gone, countless families. Think of the devastation caused by one man. Callie leaned forward, shifting restlessly in her chair. The coffee crept towards the rim of her cup and threatened to taint her print dress, but she steadied it just in time. A couple of crows nestled into the fir tree above while the resident songbirds moved on. The restless pair screamed indignantly at us before also taking flight to a neighboring oak. Can hate destroy more quickly than love can heal? I pondered. Despite the tragic news, life for the rest of us went on. Some of us went to pray, others made their coffee, enjoying the Sunday respite. But in Orlando, there was stillness. Life took a brief pause to consider the horrific details unraveling, while countless mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, lovers, friends hadn't even begun digesting the reality of the senseless deaths. Their loved ones were gone. Hate hides in plain sight, but many of us choose to ignore it. It is often too frightening and painful to consider. After the long pause, I finally broke the soft symphony of sound with my weekly inquiry. So if not that, what was the homily about? She took a sip of coffee, savoring its vitality, as she straightened her posture and felt her heart beating with more purpose. Soaking in the familiarity of my question, she saw no other choice but to move forward with the pain now a part of her. I don't know, I wasn't really listening. That's it.
I know I'm usually the one to ask questions, but we'll open it to the floor. If anybody has thoughts, comments.
Charlie was snoring.
It's
I
like,
couldn't help but get offended by my dog. I was like, oh my gosh.
Thanks for sharing that, Joe.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
I haven't thought about that event in a while, but it made me go right back there. I mean, it brought it right back. It's very vivid.
Yeah, it feels like one after the other, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's been so many since then.
you started writing that pretty soon after that. Is that true? Do you remember when you? Because I know you've worked on it since.
Yeah. I have a great editor.
Oh, that guy, not me.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot.
Yeah.
From when I first.
It sounded great when you were reading it out loud. It was nice because I've read it so many times. It was nice to hear it. It was a completely different experience. Anyway, maybe we should start reading out loud. You know? Well, we kind of do. We do that, yeah.
Definitely read your work out loud. It helps enormously, I think.
Mhm. I agree. Well, it was going with the theme of Sufjan Stevens. We're all gonna die.
It's definitely coming
Yeah.
up a lot lately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my friends.
We made it to 8.
Look at us!
Wow,
Look
we
at us
did.
go. Anything else for the good of the crew? The good of the group this evening?
No, I mean just sleepy kitten.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want to take a look at that?
Goodness, look at those ear
Oh my goodness.
fluffers. Charlie, did you see the key?
Is there a December open mic?
There is not a December. There's a November.
I'm just trying to think if our accompanist is going to be in town, because Scar and I, unless we're singing a cappella, we need self.
I have to practice my guitar.
At this point, there isn't a December one because of
I'm doing carols.
yeah.
Well,
Carols for a cause.
Oh,
you guys could always finish learning how to play Exile.
Oh boy.
oof. Yeah, I mean,
You got an assignment.
we've got the
They've been trying to learn Taylor Swift Exile for like a year.
I love that song. I would love to hear you guys do that.
I've
That
got
would be amazing.
2 of the probably 5 piano parts down, and I don't play piano. I just learned it we looked it up, but playing and singing at the same time is a whole different.
Yeah, I was gonna say news flash. Yeah, playing and singing.
You got no choice now.
Oh,
We got it booked.
You got a
You're
month.
booked for.
If you just practice a little bit every day, you'll get there. Just a little bit.
says the piano teacher.
You know how you are, Christina.
Listen, and he is not good at practicing his instruments. Whenever I've tried to teach him to play guitar, he thinks that G is the most painful and horrible thing in the entire world. The easiest chord of all time.
You can do a cheater. You can do a cheater G too. I mean, you can play G with one finger. Were you scratching your? Finger.
Is that one actually?
What? Oh. Oh, I couldn't hear you, Christina.
Oh. I thought you can play. You can use one finger to play G. You don't have to do. You don't have to make it fancy. You can make.
Seamus was showing you that he understood you were saying one finger.
Yeah. I'm a bass player. I'm used to playing with one finger. All right, now it's 8:01.
Anyway,
News is next.
our next open mic is November 20th. Mark your calendars. What else do I have to tell you? Oh, as you know, always greatly appreciate donations as you able. We're in fall term right now of classes, and winter term registration will open in November. Winter term is going to be in January. Just to keep that in your brain for those of you who live in Portland. But you know, you can also just share the news with your other loved ones. Thank you all for being here tonight and for sharing or just audiencing. Because all are important. I would love it. And maybe I'll practice enough so I can say something too. Maybe. I keep meaning to. And then I get to the third page and I'm like, I should have practiced this more. It's not ready. I'm speaking of something specific. Third page of this one particular song. Anyway. But I understand the pain of, or not the pain, the challenge of singing and playing. It can be that much more complicated. It's true.
Yeah. Well,
Chris, what's on your hat?
The Cubs.
The Cubs.
Oh, okay. I could only see the C, and I was like, it couldn't be a Cleveland hat. No, it's Chicago. All right.
From Chicago.
I didn't know you were.
Yeah.
Same accent, so it's fine.
accent.
You're great Lakeist. All right. Thanks, everybody.
We're just reading.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, everybody.